So I was just rereading and trying to, there's just so many details that when you read and reread things, you go, oh, wait a minute. I did read that in this source, and I did see that here. Um, really verifying all this information. So I'm going to go back a page here. So this is the Joseph Smith papers. I have the link to this on this page. If you scroll down, basically anything that turns into a Mickey Mouse hand, you click on it, it'll open a new page. It'll keep this open, and it will take you to here. And so George Albert Smith, this is what I found out. If you research, kind of like I was saying last night, I didn't know much of anything. I hadn't studied much about that. I hardly knew anything about the death mask in 2017. It just, when I bought it, before it got in the mail, I did find out about Newark, Kendall County, Illinois, being in the Joseph Smith papers. So I found this. I did not know that the sons lived in Kendall County in the same decade when my carte de visite was printed from a daguerreotype, because the lighting in the background doesn't match any of J.S. Bibbins' work, and it would be Gordon Gowan Weaver. He would have been the worst photographer in the world if that was his end product. But we looked at his verified photography, and he wasn't terrible, and his lighting was actually really good, and he didn't have this harsh side lighting that you see in my picture that would make more sense to someone who's really poor, like Lucy and Foster, trying to makeshift a studio out of someone's living room or something, thus a very short background. Joseph probably just, nailed together something to drape a background. I'm sure he helped him too. Whatever. I'm going to go back here and show you what was happening here. They explain in better context the beginning of this. Okay. So this is the 21st of May, 1844. Of course, this is going. Yeah, so this is copy from the Times and Seasons. They're putting in his journal here, and so they would often do that anyway. So they're saying, we arrived in Ottawa on the 17th after driving 4 days. We were soon informed the conference was removed 20 miles up the Fox River. Okay. See, there's Newark. That's where J.S. Bibbins was about 24 years old at this time. I don't think Joseph Smith was there, but he could have been. But I think they name George Albert Smith as being there. So anyway, and I don't see any connection. I don't think J.S. Bibbins was ever a member of the church or anything I found yet. I could be wrong, but anyway, several hundred citizens assembled were addressed by George Albert Smith, and the speaker considered General Smith, that's Joseph Smith Jr., he was the general, the smartest man in the United States, best to fill the presidential chair. So they were there during a presidential campaign, and they basically had a state conference. His political views were presented, close of the speech. So this would have been them speaking to everyone. Like J.S. Bibbins could have been there hearing this speech talking about Joseph Smith Jr.'s bid for the president of the United States. So it's understanding this. So they're talking about the LaSalle branch of 34. This threw me off. I'm like, just all these different cities. I'm like, because it's just hard to, did they change the name? Is it on here? That's interesting. Of a city called Norway. I was really trying to understand. What's that? Why is that in red? I don't know why that's right there. Okay, but here's Newark. I searched Millington. This is Millington, actually, is what I looked at. Anyway. So there's Newark. They mentioned LaSalle branch, and then this is Newark, Kendall County. So the following are the minutes so I guess there were a lot of people from Norway that had come to Kendall County, and this is my theory. I think most of these people from Norway, and they're not okay. They're not close to Nauvoo. They're far away. So as things are going bad in Nauvoo and homes are being burned down, you can just get out here to basically there's a Mississippi, so they're quite a ways away. The guy that owned it before me was like, "Oh, it's a city outside of Chicago." I mean, it wasn't in Chicago; it's still quite a ways away from Chicago, but pretty far away from Nauvoo. And there's Plano. J.S. Bibbins died there, but this is where my picture was printed here in the 1860s, and in 1866, Joseph Smith III moves here, but he starts coming here to this city in the year 1860 to meet members of the church, and they were members of the church that were at this branch. Okay, so these people are just still there. I think they just didn't want to go to Utah because things were fine. They're outside of Chicago, and things, it's starting to grow. And now it's a huge city, obviously. So they didn't have much motivation or desire to just leave. Anyway, but these cities, this is what I'm comparing here. Newark branch, and so all these people congregate in Newark, Kendall County, Illinois. So you're like LaSalle, Ottawa, all these different places. And then I'm going to pull up here. This is that year, 1860, of the memoirs of President. It's page 80 of the memoirs of President Joseph Smith III, the fall of 1860. So the April 1860 is when he was like, they ordained him and said, "We are ordaining you as the president leader of the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we don't follow Brigham Young, but we believe in the Book of Mormon, but we don't believe in polygamy." Although quite a few of them had heard about polygamy from Joseph Smith, and that's in their minutes, and that's probably why the Community of Christ, that used to be the RLDS Church, they have publicly said, "No, we believe Joseph Smith did practice and live polygamy. We don't deny that anymore." Okay, because it wasn't just people that lived polygamy and followed Brigham Young that said Joseph Smith taught and lived plural marriage. They did not like the word polygamy. Emma said it was one and the same as spiritual wifery, but at the same time, she did support and believe in celestial plural marriage on and off. Sometimes she hated it. It's true. Yeah. Anyway, he mentions sandwich. So this is page 80. And then this is just, I went by buggy. And here's another page here. There we go. And then he's describing, this is page 82. So he's saying, Rogers Farm, where the conference was located, was on the Fox River, a few miles from Millington, Georgetown, the section of county known as Mission, LaSalle, West, Ottawa. It was a region in which George A. Smith, which we just read, William O. Clark labored. Okay, so this literally places Joseph Smith III in the year 1860 in the exact area of, it doesn't say, I don't see the word Newark. I'll reread it again later, but all these areas, and then you're reading here. They're in Newark, Kendall County, but this is the bigger city, and everyone from Ottawa, the LaSalle branch. I don't know, it's interesting. I just love studying history. These are mostly people from Norway. They'd already come from like a really scary place, and a scary trip, a long, hard, Norway's not scary, sorry, but they'd been through a lot, and I think more of their motivation to just not go to Utah and just stay where they are, but they still believe in Book of Mormon, still believed in the restored Church of Jesus Christ. They really just wanted to stay where they just stayed where they were. But this is Newark, being associated with LaSalle, Ottawa. So that was like throwing me off, like Ottawa, LaSalle branch. But that's also what Joseph Smith III is mentioning. This is, okay, this is May 18th, 1844. This is George Albert Smith was there. Okay, he's in Newark, Kendall County, Illinois, right here. All right. So it's just those little things being like, oh yeah, they do mention those exact cities. So Joseph Smith III mentions being right outside of Millington, across the Foxwick River, but he's mentioning LaSalle. He's mentioning all these areas around here. So the likelihood Joseph Smith III was in Newark in 1860, very likely. So him crossing paths in the year 1860 would be 6 more years before he moves to Plano, Kendall County, Illinois. Anyway, so I just recommend looking at the link Provenance, like I was talking about last night, which again, I have to be like grateful that people have their blogs and they have their strong opinions, and what's past is past. But it's good that artists brought up how important Provenance was. I would have researched it anyway if I hadn't have read, her and Jared T being like, well, there's no provenance for the scandal daguerreotype. We need to figure out provenance, But I really just followed steps from, how do you identify someone in a photo? I just Googled that, and it was the clothing style. Okay, I'd already compared it to the death mask. Okay, we don't have any other photos to compare to, but 1840s clothes. And you can see that background. But yeah, go ahead and check out the book that I mentioned before, where you can see the actual daguerreotype of this. You'll see it oxidized, and that's why I think by 1879 Joseph Smith III didn't just copy and mail an actual photo. He photographed the painting and used India ink and touched it up, and they touched up photos back then. As soon as photography existed, they were already doing Photoshop because people didn't like how their photo looked, and they didn't like it was black and white. So they painted on some blue, or they painted red on the cheeks, or it's just crazy how much Wilford Woodruff's face changed. Apparently this is canon. This is also these for sure are by canon. It's just when you get up here, they give a date range and they're not positive. Some people think it was canon, some think it was Lucy and Foster. There's people who think this was Lucy and Foster. I actually think it looks younger there. But you can see, I think you can see a straight dark line. I'm thinking that this is not oxidation. I'm thinking this is similar to what I'm seeing even here. So him and Phoebe had their picture taken August 23rd, 1844. You can click on that link and read that. So this is when I've just been researching the last 5 years, this was one person to compare the background and the lighting style to see, okay, does my photo have a similar background and lighting as what Lucien Foster had in his photography? So here he does mention this is Wilford, 100% Wilford Woodruff. This is August 23rd, 1844. Someone wrote in red, but if you go to the beginning of the month, he just keeps writing each day, but then when it's a new year, he writes, or month, he'll write that. He'd stylize. I mean, this is, yeah, looks like the Y. I'm just thinking of Y Mountain. But anyway, just drawing. Like, is that a crown? I don't know. But he was just an avid writer where not everyone wrote down. Joseph did not. I mean, even though he had someone who was a scribe and wrote down his daily activities, he still didn't write down every detail. But Wilford used his own pen, and he, I'm sure, had more time to write down the details of every day of his life. But he's talking about the daguerreotype, him and Sister Foster, Mrs. Woodruff, so that's Phoebe, and myself. So he and Phoebe both had miniatures taken of themselves. And so when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing, okay, here's Phoebe. This is like a headshot. This is like a 3/4 shot where it's more of the body. And then if you look at the photos of Emma, did I zoom in? No, I didn't. Okay, this is also, okay, like a 3/4 shot. This is more like a headshot. So it seems like with the men, you know, get your face. But with the women, they want to see the dress, a little bit more of them. And she's at an angle. We'll go back and compare. She's sort of at an angle because her hand's on the table, but just a little more face on. But you see that side lighting. That is not seen in J.S. Bibbins' actual work. So this is a daguerreotype. This is a daguerreotype. This is really clear. It's so amazing. So it's just, but that must not have been copied onto a carte de visite. And you know, everyone who went to Utah, I mean, they had hard times, but those that were of the 12, they probably just kept getting their picture taken. It's just my think that they were less motivated maybe to take apart and damage their daguerreotypes to get it copied, because Emma was very poor, so getting some of her daguerreotypes copied before they turned black, or she didn't have any other picture of her husband, so. But this one looks really blurry, but he's at the same angle. He has that same collar. He's got that. He's almost sitting at the same angle in the background. This is, I don't know why. You can really see that soft cloud-like background in that one. And you see that there. So I think that first one that someone had obtained fairly recently, and they said, "Oh, it's by Lucien Foster," but they're just assuming it could be. I think they both are. I think they thought he maybe looked younger because he was blurry, but this is so clear. But then if you look at this is very high resolution copy of this. So blurry, he moved his face slightly. And I think Lucien Foster realized, oh, this didn't turn out that well. It wasn't that great of a copy, so I think he let him sit for it again. His hair looks a little bit more poofy there. The hairstyle looks a little bit different, so it might have been, maybe he went home and just didn't like it, or came back and got a better copy, although he doesn't say that they left and went back, but and there you go, this better copy. His hair is more smoothed, it's less poofy, you know. This one just turned out a lot better, and it's very, very clear. So I think he moved and his hair didn't look that great, so he just went back and got fixed up and did it again. You know, kind of like we do today, except it was very expensive, but he was a member of the 12, so. Anyway, side lighting, very harsh lighting, 3/4 shot, I think a shorter background. I think it just gets so much darker up there. I see more in this one. It looks like there could be this straight line where it could be that shorter background, which is what I believe I can see. And definitely here, so shorter background. Side lighting, the lighting's a little bit better. It could have been, you know, brighter part of the day. It's so annoying. My website's doing this. I need to change that. But this is, and then you just think how tall this person must have been. But this doesn't look like J.S. Bibbins' photography. It's very harsh side lighting. Opposite side with her, but the light's coming from this side of mine, and then the light's coming from that same side. But did they flip the orientation of these pictures? Very likely, because they knew they were daguerreotypes. And I think that's what happened here. We think it could have been a daguerreotype of a daguerreotype, and then it's in the correct perspective, and then they would take a photo and create a go. And Weaver, that would be done a lot if people just didn't want it to be, you know, if they knew you had a scar on that side of your face and they look at the daguerreotype, it's over here. They wanted to look at it and see how they would look and see that person in real life. So you can see that whole story. Of course, I I put more detail into Providence on the Providence page and include a lot of other reasons. Yeah, I was talking about Millington. Here is Joseph Slocum. Now we realize the S is for Slocum. Bibbins, born in Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, 1821. Died 18th of August, 1891, Plano, Kendall County, Illinois. So he died in Plano. He died in the same city that Joseph Smith III lived for about 16 years. And he was buried in Millington. So that's why I was searching Millington here. So he dies there, but he's buried there because he's from here. So even though this headstone doesn't mention Newark, it's always J.S. And then you can read more of these documents to see they always mention Joseph Slocum Bibbins, and there's even have historical records you can log in. So I already quoted this, but I kind of did ... I was looking, I think I was trying to mention and compare all those little cities that were mentioned of LaSalle and Ottawa. That's all mentioned by Joseph Smith III in 1860. It's also mentioned by George Albert Smith when he's doing the minutes of the May 1844 visit to Newark, where J.S. Bibbins lives. So for sure, George Albert Smith went there, and then Joseph Smith III goes there, mentions LaSalle, he mentions Ottawa, doesn't say Newark, but talks about the Fox River and that whole area. So it's just really, there's just so much information. It's one of the, just even after 5 years, as I reread things, I'm like, wait a minute, oh yeah, that person did mention all of those same cities as that one did too. It's just frustrating when you can't find, I remember trying to find LaSalle and Ottawa. I'm like, where are these, like Harmony. There's no Harmony, Pennsylvania anymore, So people just know where it used to be, the city it's called now. And anyway, and I updated this, I think I already talked about that, but then 1866, Joseph Smith III had lived there since January of 1866, so it's been 8 months. Here's Emma just saying she just misses him like crazy. And that her husband, Vitamin, is just telling her to go off, fix up, and go to Plano, but she has to take care of Alexander's kids. And if you read the whole thing, she's like, just send him home. Get your brother out of Utah. Just stop bugging those people. And then October 22nd, 1866, she's, at that point, she's like, she says the weather there seems about the same as it is here. Whether that meant she went there, I don't know. That I wonder about that. But 67, February, she mentions trying to get her negative. I have not had my negative. So she mentioned trying to find a photo car. And I'll just read it. I have not gotten my negative taken yet, and I do not know if I might as well look for Fred Bishop's car. She'll try to get my negative taken. So, did she have a negative of Joseph Smith's photo? Was my photo always a paper photograph? I used to think that, and now I am still open to that, but Gowan Weaver's the one that said it looked like it was copied from like a metal photo, like a daguerreotype or ambrotype. So, an older one. And the clothing, he's wearing Joseph Smith's vest, he's wearing the pop down collar, but it's smaller and it's overlaps his jawline. It couldn't be any higher up on his neck. So she could have been trying to get her own negative. To me, that implies she's trying to get a photo copied. And we know Julia Murdoch Smith had already copied Emma's own picture of herself in the 1860s too, holding baby David Hiram Smith. She knew that process could happen. And then it's just with these letters from David Hiram that have been uploaded onto the church catalog that he says that she came to Newark. And I don't think that means that was her first time going there, even though it's the 1870s, and it's possible there could have been J.S. Bibbins could have still been making card receipts instead of cabinet cards, even though cabinet cards were the thing in the 1870s. which is why my picture is dated as a carte de visite, because it's a different type of paper, different, cabinet cards were just bigger, a different process. So my picture could have been early 1870s too, I don't know, when it was copied from an older daguerreotype. So yeah, go ahead and check this all out and just read the whole page, because this is where you can see it just says Joseph. This is Illinois, Kendall County, Big Grove. Big Grove covers, I've gone over all this before, but it covers like this whole area actually, I think. Anyway, but yeah, that's all. I don't need to go anything else. Just the thirds, like I'm going south down here, but then I'm in this whole area, and all these people knew George Albert Smith, and they had all gone to Newark. So J.S. Bibbins was. So that all goes to the provenance page. Anyway, it's fun. I guess the only new thing was just realizing that, oh yeah, they did mention all this list of all these cities in that area where they all line up from this October 1860s journal entry. And George Albert Smith's talking about LaSalle County. All these people are from Norway, Newark. So all these people are, okay, Newark, 35 members. LaSalle had 46, Ottawa, 16, And then Joseph Smith III mentions his, father's cousin, George A. William O'Clock labored extensively in the early days of the church. That's where he was in October 1860. There you got LaSalle, Ottawa, Fox River, a few miles from Millington. That's the Fox River. There's Millington. Okay. Anyway, it's fun. If you find anything new, you can just let me know. Have a good day.